Hi guys, so today I am going to show you a simple method of putting fabric onto stretcher bars. So usually we put canvas on, raw canvas or gessoed canvas on these stretcher bars. I actually went to the craft store and they don't sell them anymore at the craft store. You have to order them online, or at least my local ones. So this may be out of date. But one of the things you want to make sure is that there's this little lip on stretcher bars. It's not on one side and it is on the other side. You want to make sure that that's all facing the same way when you put these guys together. And these usually come separated and you just sort of put them together. They'll have this little opening and you slide them together. Once they're together and you've got it at a nice 90-degree angle, you're going to want to make sure you hammer them together so that they're nice, put together well. Hammer those guys together. And then what I like to do, just to make sure that it sticks together real nice, again, you have to kind of adjust. And if you're, if you have a corner that you want to match it up to make sure that it's 90 degrees, that's great. Okay, so then once I have it together and it's in a nice square or rectangle, whatever you've decided, I like to staple these corners here together, just to give it a little bit more security. And some artists will actually glue those corners together that I just showed you. So you can decide how sturdy you want this thing to be. And this lip that we're talking about, this is important because when you're painting, the fabric goes over this. It helps lift the fabric up so that when you paint on those areas, you're not painting against the hard wood, which will end up showing up in your painting. So you want to make sure that that is the front side where that lip is that goes across on the stretcher bars. And I am using this just old piece of fabric that I found. It was a scarf. You want to make sure that it's larger than your frame here. And I'm just going to make sure that it sort of fits. Now the goal is to get this fabric to wrap around this edge, and we're going to staple it. So I'm just making sure that this thing is going to fit all the way around with some excess to wrap around. Once you get your fabric, and this is the same process you would use if you were using canvas. So I'm just showing you the fabric because I think this is an interesting, cool idea for us to use if you're playing with acrylic paint and you want to paint on an interesting surface. So I'm just cutting off the excess, making sure that I have enough that will wrap around that frame edge. And I'm not worried. You can see that this piece of fabric is wrinkly. It doesn't matter because when we pull it out, when we pull it and stretch it on these canvas bars, it will straighten it all out. All right, so again, making sure that lip, that's going to be the front side. So I'm going to place that lip side down because we're going to staple the stuff on the back. So I put it over the fabric, just like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a bit of the fabric, wrap it on the edge here, take my staple gun, and staple that bad boy in place. Now if that staple doesn't go all the way in, I'll take my hammer, knock it in a little bit more. Now going right across from that, we're going to go on the other end, on the other side of this guy, and pull it across. And I'm pulling it taut. Okay, so not too tight that it's like going to buckle, but just enough so that it's tight on that frame. Again, coming on in with that staple gun. If that staple gun didn't go all the way through, get your handy dandy hammer and knock that guy in. This is Nito, he's coming to help me. So I've done two sides now, so it's attached across from each other in the middle of the frame. Now I'm going to go across and do it on the other side. Again, tightening up, sort of pulling it taut, getting it nice. We don't want it to buckle. We want it to kind of spread evenly. There we go, that's nice. Again, if you need an extra little boom, 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 make that happen. Turn it around. Again, pulling it tight. Staple. Little boom, boom, boom. Get it nice in there. All right, so pretty much now you can see what's happening. I've got this piece of fabric. Again, I'm using the flat side on the back to staple. That lip is in the front side. That way when we paint on the front, we won't get the markings of the wood. It sort of lifts up the fabric, so we're painting just on the fabric. Okay, so then, now once we have sort of our 4 centers stapled, we go back to the first one, and what we're going to do here, get you even closer in here so you guys can see what I'm doing here. What I'm going to now do is I'm going to stretch the fabric to the corner and pull it up. So I'm stretching the fabric over and pulling it up. I'm going to go ahead and do a staple. Again, I'm now pulling the fabric over this way and lifting it up, pulling it over that frame and stapling. So now I have 3 staples on this one side. I'm going to turn it to the opposite side. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm stretching the fabric. That's why these are called stretcher bars, because we're stretching the fabric over them. So I'm stretching this fabric again, over and up, staple, pulling this over and up, over this way and up, staple again. I like to go in with my little hammer, handy dandy. Hammer, make sure those guys are really in there. Turn to now this side, and again, we're stretching the fabric and pulling it over to go around this frame. Again, pulling the fabric over, pulling it up over this frame, and getting a little nice stapler in there. And again, if it doesn't go all the way through, just get that handy dandy hammer. Get that bad boy in there. All right, so now we have 3 sides stapled. I'm going to now go along again. Move aside, get that staple in there. Again, pulling and stretching so that fabric is nice and taut. Going in if I need to. Boom, boom. All right, so now we've got, you can see what's happening here. Sort of stretching this fabric nicely over this frame. Still soft and wrinkly on the edge here because I haven't got those staples yet, but through the center here you can see it's nice and flat and taut. So you're just going to continue to go around. It's important to go opposite sides. Don't go this side, this side, this side, this side. That tends to have an uneven stretched fabric over the frame. You want to go opposite sides. So here we go again. I'm going to stretch this over, staple, again, stretch it over, staple. If it doesn't go all the way through, sometimes it doesn't. Other side, turn it over, again, opposite side, stretching, pull. You can see here what's happening, it's all wrinkly. As soon as I stretch it and pull it over, it flattens it out, makes it taut. Nice, interesting pattern fabric I'm using here. Same thing on the other side of that staple, pulling it over, stapling, other side. Okay, so once we get to the corners, that's when things get a little tricky with the fabric. So I'll pull you even closer to see what we can do there. Pulling this side over. And a couple of different techniques. Again, going over the opposite side, pulling it over, stretching it. over, stretching it. All right. Now we're getting to the corner. Okay, so now you can see, now one of the rules of stretching canvas or fabric over stretcher bars is to make sure it has a nice sort of drum feel. You don't want this stuff loose, goosey, moving around. You want this pretty taut. You can see it's pretty taut here. It almost sounds like I'm hitting a drum. You want to get that drum sound on here. That means you did a good job. Okay, it's not gonna sag on you. Okay, so now we've got the corner here. Let's see, I'm gonna pull you now even closer. Let me see if I get this camera in here. All right, cool. All right, here we go. So on this corner here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the fabric, one corner, I'm going to take the fabric over. All right, so I've taken the fabric over. Then what I'm going to do is now take this other side, sort of fold it over. I'm holding this fobric taut, and I'm folding this over, and I'm pulling this fabric over, and then folding this over that corner. And this is going to give us a nice, you can see here, sort of lining it up. So it gives us a nice fold corner there. And then I'm going to go along and staple that into place. You can decide, do you need another, you can see it's kind of loose right there. Fabric's kind of loose, so I'm just going to go along and staple that. Now this extra stuff here, no big deal. Just take your scissors and get rid of that. So that's a nice corner there. If anything's flipping up, just staple it down. Now what we tend to try to do, you can see now, this fabric is folded over that corner. That corner is nice and taut, and we have a nice straight line there. Nothing's buckled up, nothing's buckling up on this side. We tend to try to keep that fold the same. So this fold is going down. I'm going to do that on this side too, the fold coming down. So I'm going to pull this fabric. Same thing now, same thing. I'm going to take this underneath fabric, I'm going to pull it over, and this one has a little extra bit happening here, so I'm going to just staple that down before I get too far. I'm going to pull that over. I'm holding this fabric taut underneath, and I'm bringing this guy over the top, and I'm laying that down so we get that nice flat fold, You know, we're human here, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But pretty perfect is good for me. Again, we got all this extra bulk here. I'm just going to go in. I'm going to cut this stuff off. Be careful not to go through with the scissors on the front side, then you'll ruin your stretched fabric. All right, so there we go. So far we have this corner, again, a little excess fabric here, no big deal, just cut it off. All right, so that's looking pretty good. You see on the front side here, nice stretched fabric. Again, same method with canvas, just rather you wouldn't have a design here. So now these guys are going, the fabric is going up and over, so on this side I'm going to let the fabric come up and over this way. Again, this is, you know, this is just a preference. So it looks a little bit neater. I like this method just so it's a little bit neater. Not necessarily has to be like this, but as long as this fabric is nice and stretched taut and it's not buckling up on you, then you are good to go. I'm going to leave that now before I cut off that excess so I have enough to stretch over here. Again, this is now, you can see the fabric's folding down, folding inward here. I'm going to make it fold inward here also. Pulling that fabric taut around that corner, holding that, bringing this fabric over, and holding this taut on that corner, bringing that fabric nice and taut over this corner, lining it up with that edge. Boom. Put a nice couple of staples there. There we go. And again, this excess fabric, I'm just going to go along and cut that off. We don't need that hanging around back there. That's just going to make it be bulky in the back against the wall. We don't need that. So just cutting off this excess stuff. Now this isn't paint ready. This is just stretched. You can't go ahead. You could go ahead and paint on this, but the paint would just go right through. You can even see the light comes through pretty. It's almost it's transparent. You can see right through it. So the paint is going to go right through. These are just very thin fibers. This weave here. So the next step on this guy. Bring you back a little bit. The next step, what we're going to do here is to get this paint ready. Once you've stretched this fabric on this frame, we want to get it paint ready. There's a couple of different things you can do. I'm going to take some of this. There's a couple of different brands out there. You have Golden's, Liquitex, Basics. But I'm going to take some matte gel. Okay. Some matte gel, and this is this heavy body matte gel, acrylic medium, meaning it doesn't it's not loosey-goosey liquidy. And I'm going to take my palette knife here. I'm just going to take a nice big amount of this stuff, and I'm just going to start layering this on here. Nice, good, thick, generous amount. Now this fabric has a memory, just like paper. Whatever we do to it, it remembers. And usually as things tend to dry, whether it be fabric or paper, it buckles. So I'm going to weigh this. Once I get this medium on here, I'm going to weigh it down. I'm going to put some rocks or something, or even if I have a clamp or something, clamp it down to the table flat, because as this dries, it's going to pull and shrink these fibers. And you don't want your canvas here to bow and stretch, look like something funky. You want it to be nice and flat. Unless that's your intention, to create something really wild and out of this world, which you could do that. So I'm just liberally, generously bringing this matte medium now over, or matte gel, same one and the same thing. Sometimes they call it gel, sometimes they call it medium, matte medium or matte gel. I'm just going right along here. And this is going to help tighten up this fabric. Once I have a nice generous amount with my palette knife, I'm going to go in with a brush. Any old brush, whatever you have laying around. I just have one of these 99-cent sort of quick brushes. And I'm just going to now just take my brush and really nicely layer that and get that all over. It's nice too to kind of take it over to the edge. Make sure you get all the little crevices, the edges. Going all over. And this is going to take about, a good 12 to 24 hours to dry. And once it dries, you may need to go back and put another layer on, just to make it so that it's not porous. Because we don't want the paint to just kind of seep through to the other side. What's really cool about this matte gel, you can see the pattern still comes through. So we're going to be painting on top of a pattern, which is sort of a cool, interesting technique to play with. I'm just going along again. I have so much of this medium on the front, I'm just kind of moving it around to the sides, getting these side panels, side parts of the bars. Again, like I said, this stuff is going to, as it dries, it is going to bend. You want to make sure there are some weights or clips or something to hold this thing down. Anything that gets stuck in this, like I've got a couple of pieces of the string kind of poking through, that stuff will stick in there with this matte gel. If you don't want those little nuances, little bits and pieces everywhere, you got to get those out while it's wet. So I'm just covering this whole thing. And there you go. Now all we have to do is weigh it down. You can even use the stapler if you want, you know, lay it down here. Maybe I'll take my hammer, kind of lay my hammer down on it, just so that it dries flat. Let me take this guy. You get the idea. And of course I'm going to do another layer on this. Once this dries, I'm going to do another layer. It takes about 12 hours. So it's a little bit of a process. So if this is something you want to do, you got to get started straight away. And I think that's it. All right. Bye.